Mr. Gqeberha, now that we've got those matters out of the way, can you tell the court a bit about yourself and how it is you come to be testifying this morning?
My name is Nyaniso Koniwe. I'm the only son of Matthew and Nyameka Koniwe. I was born in 1982. That would make me 3 years old when my father died, was killed. I lived in my young life, grew up in Cradock until 1990, where my mother took us to Cape Town. So I grew up most of my life, my adult life and my teenage years in Cape Town. And now I find myself back in Cradock, having to handle a few things on my mother's estate as she passed on last year. Also this inquest. I have a sister. She passed on last year, Nobuzwe Koniwe. Sadly, she passed on last year, July. Yeah.
Thank you for that background. And can you just explain to the court what career you have been pursuing and your current status?
I went to, straight after high school, I went to AAA School of Advertising in Cape Town, where I graduated with a diploma. There I majored in art direction, and that would basically be my career for my life, for the rest of my sort of years after that. Art direction might be confusing to some people. Some people think it's painting or doing some piece of the arts where you get to paint, but it's really making adverts in the simplest form. Similarly, it's close to graphic design, also intertwines with it. So they play a role like alongside each other. Different careers, but similar nonetheless.
Thank you. Mr. Gqeberha, as we discussed in our meeting today, we're not going to be traversing everything that you have set out in your statement. Luckily, much of your statement, particularly dealing with the events leading up to your father's death and decisions allegedly taken by various individuals that had been dealt with in some detail in the evidence of Mr. Lukhanyo Calata. So we won't be traversing that today. But I think the court is going to be interested in your father, the man, his early years and how it was he got involved in political activism. If you could give an indication in your own words.
My father was born in 1947. He had not an easy background, but not the best either. Growing up quite humble beginnings under his father and his mother, David and Elizabeth, they were farm laborers. Back then, in the old Cradock, they used to live in Gqeberha, it was called, in the old Cradock. They moved to Lingelihle in 1962. He came from a big family, 8 brothers and sisters in total. He was the youngest out of those brothers and sisters. But being the youngest, he was clearly the leader for the family. The family just respected his authority, his leadership, his discipline, his humanity, and I would say his humility.
And how did you get to know about this Mr. Gqeberha?
I got to know about this judge since I was 3. Just my mother, my older cousins, family, friends would give me this information. And just general records that were out there. Documentaries that I've watched all the years growing up about my father. So certainly a lot of information that came from outside and I came into contact with from people close to me.
Now you mentioned in your statement that while at school he had a love for football, rugby and boxing and singing in the choir. How was it that your father got involved in political activity?
Well, in my knowledge, he was greatly influenced, my lady, by his older brother, Uchamani, Jakes Goniwe. Now, Uchamani was his older brother, and he was the one who would later influence him to go into radicalism and just politics. He burnt his passbook in 1950 under the ANC Defiance campaign. And then he would later join the ANC in Maseru in 1960, where he would be killed by the Rhodesian Task Force. I think I'm told it's then that he made sure that he picked up from where his brother left off and just be as forthright political and mobilize from then on.
And what career did your father decide to go into?
He studied at Fort Hare. He got his teacher's diploma at Fort Hare, majoring in mathematics, physics, and chemistry. And therefore, after that, then he would become a teacher.
He certainly chose some of the hardest, most technical subjects around.
Yes, he was a learned man. Very loved to debate, loved the studies, loved maths, loved science. Later, he would become a teacher of maths and science. Later, when he taught in Transkei and Lingalihle.
Talking about his teaching at a school in the Transkei, your statement reflects that he took a great deal of initiative at that particular school. Can you indicate to the court what he did there?
To my knowledge, he went to Olomisa High in Kanduli, I think it's in Transkei, where the school was in a sort of church, which it was run down and dilapidated. He renovated the school, Judge. He started choir groups, debating societies, and also soccer, rugby, and boxing clubs. And he just basically rejuvenated the school. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, it wasn't too long before he would be running into some trouble. Your statement refers to him being involved in underground cells or Marxist talking groups. Can you indicate what happened to him as a result of those activities?
He would, also in Transkei, he would set up these Marxist cells, Judge. The Marxist cells were basically a reading group that focused on Marxism and communism. And with his friends, the Gqeberha brothers, Melukolo Silinga and Michael Kotolos, they also started Marxist cells in Fort Hare and other towns. It was then a fellow student in Fort Hare would betray them, and they would fall victim to the suppression of the Communism Act, where he would go to jail with his other four comrades from 1976 to 81.
Yes. In fact, he was an awaiting trial prisoner, I understand, for about a year and a half. So when you add on the 4 years, it was he was held behind bars, in fact, for I think close to 5.5 years. So can we then turn to your father's release from prison in October 1981, and what activities he then engaged in?
In 83, after that, he he became the principal of Semkhali Junior Secondary, where he and Fort Calata fought to just rejuvenate the school and make it more disciplined. It was also in 83, I think, where they formed Kradoya, the Cradock Youth Association, where he was the chairperson and Putfort was the secretary. There they were just, the first mandate, I think, was to cut down the hefty rentals of the community at the time.
Do you recall whether they were successful in those anti-rent campaigns?
Yes. That became, with mobilization and a mass meeting, I think it pressured and forced that then local government to actually take down the rentals in the community.
Sorry, I did not get that, Mr. Koniwa.
I said it was successful.
What about rentals? I didn't get that.
Oh, it was successful in that the mass meetings made the rentals go down.
Thank you.
So as a result of these campaigns, certain action was taken against your father. Can you explain what happened to him towards the end of 1983?
In trying to neutralize him, and I think they were a bit overwhelmed and scared by my father, in that he can mobilize a lot of people and is very popular. So they pressured the Department of Education to remove him from Cradock and transfer him to Gqeberha to be a principal, which he refused, and he opted to stay and be a teacher, a normal teacher in Cradock, which then the Department of Education sent him a telegram ordering him to start on the 1st 1981, I think.
1st of January,
1st of January, 84, sorry. To start in Gqeberha. And there was a mass meeting again with a lot of people, which they refused the transfer. And then that sparked off a school boycott. When they fired him, it sparked off a school boycott that lasted 15 months, I believe.
So because of all this activity and mobilization in Cradock and surrounding areas, the police ended up taking action against him. Can you indicate to the court what action that was?
They put, I believe they put my father under permanent surveillance, where they would tap his phone and secretly survey him. Also using the listening devices, then called tamati or tomato, depending how you call it. They were able to survey in that way while listening to phone calls. You would have heard also Professor Derek Swart mention this, that his phone was also most of the time tapped by the police force.
And in fact, if you recall, during the inspection in Loka, when we visited your home in Lukhanyo Township, I believe it was Mr. Gqeberha who pointed out approximately where in the living room they believed the tamati to be. You recall that?
Yes, I do indeed.
So then ultimately your statement reflects that he was detained towards the end of March, together with other activists from the region. You well, you were too young to recall, but you would have heard subsequently that your father, Mr. Gqeberha for Calata and Madoda Jacobs, were then rounded up at the end of March 1984. if you bear knowledge of that, you can just say yes, because it has to go into the record.
Yes.
Yeah. So as mentioned, we're not going to traverse what we know from the documentation that has been disclosed in the Zietman inquest and also the Truth Commission. So let's then fast forward, Mr. Gqeberha. Following your father's release from detention later that year, are you aware of the kinds of activities he then engaged in? You make reference to his organising on behalf of the UDF and the so-called G plan.
The G plan, the so-called Gqeberha plan. That was first of its first of its kind. Sorry, that was just an organization of street committees which separated community into zones. Those zones had representatives that then looked after the community and could engage and sort of look after them from each community in those zones. That's what I believe the G plan was.
So it appears that, given all that work in his profile, the authorities felt that further action had to be taken against your father. We're not going to go through that documentation because, as mentioned, that's already before the court. But perhaps I can just canvass with you for your view or interpretation of the infamous signal that was sent on the 7th of June 1985, recommending the urgent permanent removal of your father, Mr. Gqeberha, as well as Fort Calata.
To me, my lady, permanent removal is certainly different from removal that was earlier indicated when the police forces were pressurizing the Department of Education to remove my father from Cradock. That would, to me, mean geographically remove, to my understanding of the word. And permanent removal would mean, in my thinking, to take him out indefinitely, forever. Take his life, basically, which is the difference for me.
So then on that fateful day of the 27th of June 1985, your statement reflects that your father went to Port Elizabeth, and of course the rest of that history we are now familiar with. Can I ask you now to talk about the impact of the death of your father on you and your family in the aftermath? Of course, at that time you were very young and you won't have a recollection, but in subsequent years it would have had an impact on you. If you can speak about that.
Well, definitely, and it would have impacted our lives in that, Judge, it impacted my mother's life, which would definitely influence our lives. We'll start with my mother. It greatly influenced her life, greatly. When I hear from friends of the family I'd heard that from Peter Vale and Louisa Vale. They would tell me that after the death, he went to, my mother went to sleep at their house in Grahamstown. And Louise expressed how she was emaciated, thin, when she arrived. She slept very late, woke up late. I think that's just the trauma from just having lost her husband. Waking up late, that she didn't want to face, the realities of that day. So that went on for a while until she got better. And then, as you heard from the other widows, the raids still continued. And some got worse, as you heard Sis Nomonde say, after the killings. My mother went to Cape Town to look for a job there, as she wanted us to take us away from the trouble that was going on with us in Cradock. So we would move to Cape Town in 1990. That's when the kids moved to Cape Town. So my mother really had to pick up the pieces, after which, when my father died, she had to start all over again in a new city, find a job which could sustain her two young kids, find schooling, find accommodation, which she did. That's what I'm proud of my mother. She did that for a number of years. I don't know if without her we would have been here, I suppose. There she took on the role of the mother and my father, as I didn't have a father. She would go to my soccer games. I remember fracturing my collarbone, and later breaking my collarbone. She was there at those games, even if it's to practice, taking bicycle kicks on the field. I did that with her. So despite having work and all of that, she still needed time to actually be a mother and a parent, and a mother and a father to her kids. She never married. I think I remember Louise Vale telling me that my mother confided in her, saying that in all about, I think, 10 years that she was married to to Matthew, because of the jail times, because of everything, they were only together maybe for 1 year. Within the 10 years they were together, they could only be together for 1 year, which is crazy to think about. So I guess she was probably lonely, but she had us, and that was probably enough for her then. And then the impact on the kids, I'd start with my sister.
Before you turn to your sister, I was quite struck by the quote you have of your mother when she testified at the East London City Hall on 17 April 1996, when she was asked what her thoughts were about those who had murdered her husband. And she said, well, she will be ready to reconcile, but it first means that they have to show remorse. And reconciliation and healing takes time. What did you think of those profound words of your mother?
I thought that it meant they have to have remorse, but also tell the truth. Tell the truth, and then only we can start maybe dealing with forgiveness. And that's, I think, been the unfortunate thing about these inquests. Really, people telling the truth, because we can't talk about forgiveness. We can't forgive at this point until we get the truth. And those perpetrators that applied for amnesty, while they had lied for all those years and never said anything until 1999. That's a number of years that they concealed the truth. So from 99 until now, we haven't had justice because those people are passed on. We need other people to tell the truth, so then we can start forgiving.
Thank you. Melody, I now have a copy of the different statements in the transcripts of Mrs. Gqeberha. With leave of the court, I'd like to hand it up to your ladyship.
I'll mark the bundle as F91.
As the court pleases.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Vani.
And Mr. Gqeberha, I actually want to read you a small excerpt from your mother's statement to the police, which was made not long after the murders on the 24th of July 1985. Milady, it's actually on the very front page. It's about the third or fourth paragraph from the bottom of the page. It's in Afrikaans, and it reads: Ek verdink die polisie wie my man en sy 3 vriende vermoor het. Translated as, I think it's the police who murdered my husband and his 3 friends. Ek vermoed dat die veiligheidspolisie van Cradock is wat saamwerk met die veiligheidspolisie van Port Elizabeth. So she says she believes that the people responsible to be the security branch in Cradock, working together with the security police in Port Elizabeth. So here is your mother telling the police who she believed to be responsible just a few weeks after the murders. what does that tell you about your mother, that she says to the police's face exactly who she believed to have been behind the murders just a few weeks later?
My mother was a brave woman, very strong-willed, small but dynamite, I guess, in a small package. I think she knew from the way the prior things that went on prior, the raids, the tapping of the phones. I think people got the sense that, and the call from PE, obviously he would have told her he's going to maybe meet up with Derek, maybe. So I think she kind of got the sense that the way it was orchestrated, that both the PE and the Cradock Defense Force knew about, they planned it and knew about what happened on June the 27th.
And as it turned out, what your mother said in that statement on the 24th of July 1985 proved to be exactly correct, as we now know from the amnesty proceedings.
Yes.
Before I interrupted you, I think you were about to turn to the impact of your father's death on your sister. Please continue.
I just want to say, Judge, that my sister passed on last year, July. In the early years, my sister was vibrant, outgoing. We had a close relationship, very close relationship. For me, just confiding in her about things that were going on in my life. We would sometimes have fun together. She was older, but sometimes she would take me with her. I remember when she was even young, we went on this is after my father's death. I was a bit older, maybe 8 or younger. We went on a toy that was going on in the township. And I still remember, because we used to enjoy going to those, that when the police forces came, they shot tear gas and the crowd dispersed and we were running away, and I was running right behind her, and I can just remember seeing the tear gas, and then she jumped right over it and it bounced right underneath her as she just hopped over it as she was running in front of me. So she had a lot of spunk as well. What changed her life is the fact also that she would have been 10 when my father got killed. So that would mean that she had more of a personal memories and personal relationship with my dad that she remembers more. She experienced more. So I think the trauma of the killing was, to her, meant more because she was there, she was present, Judge. She remembers that day. Probably she would have remembered vividly. What happened to her?
But you say she kept her feelings bottled up.
She kept her feelings bottled up, would never sort of show them. And maybe she didn't know how to show them at the time, as she was young, growing up. And she maybe just suppressed them without us knowing, naturally. It then took a documentary, I think it was, that we were watching on SABC 1 about Matthew Gqeberha, about my father, that I think it triggered her. All those memories and everything came out to the fore. All those memories manifested now themselves to come out at that time. Now this is later on in life, when she was an adult, still going to school, at UWC. Then from then on, things changed. Things changed, Judge. From then on, she was hallucinating. It manifested in hallucinations. And then after that, withdrawing and sort of living in her own world, being internally and not there in front of us. And physically, yes, but in terms of communication, she was not there. And then she became a shell of herself in that way and withdrawn. We felt we couldn't reach her, so the relationship wasn't the same as well as it was with us. It messed up our relationship, because then we couldn't bond as we would in the earlier years. It was hard to hold up a conversation. Yeah, so we lost that bond in my life that I could have, in the early years, told her about, all those conversations. Now I could no longer do that with her. So I think that's how it affected her for so many years. She was clinically diagnosed with depression. And so she lived her life in that traumatic state. When our mother passed on in 2021, she would then go live in Port Elizabeth, here in PE, KwaDwesi, with our cousin, Ubongiwe. And I don't know what that did to her also, seeing the death of our mother, who was essentially her caregiver, who was living with her every day, basically taking care of her, telling her what to do, all of the above.
Thank you for relaying the account of your sister. Before her decline in her later years, you do mention that she did play quite a prominent role in helping to set up the monument in Cradock, the Garden of Remembrance. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. She was part of the Matthew Gqeberha Cradock Four Trust. I guess they set up the Garden of Remembrance in Cradock, which I think some of us were part of and saw when we went to Cradock to take some evidence last week. So she was involved in all those things, even though she was not 100% there, I would say.
And I was struck by what you said in your statement, that but for your father's death, but for the brutal and abrupt nature of his death, your sister's life might have been so different? What did you mean by that?
You know, I think all of our lives would have been different. Her life could have been changed. The trauma wouldn't have been there of the brutalizing and desecration of my father as life and body. She would have certainly turned out different, I would think. Maybe turned out different in her career. She probably maybe would have had kids, would have been married. Just her whole trajectory of life, or how it turned out, would have been different. She maybe would have been in Joburg, living there, studying there with some of her friends that she studied with that are now in Joburg, living quite healthy, normal lives, as they should at that age. She would have been, I think, turning 50 this year. So she would have had established quite a healthier life and a career and family. That's what I think she probably would have turned out to be.
Now, you've spoken about the impact of your father's death on your mother and your sister. Can we turn to the impact on you and your own life?
My life, basically growing up, I took on the role of maybe trying to, the protector also, of having to be strong. So not crying much. I think certain instances where other people would cry, maybe sometimes I don't cry. I find myself, I'm just, I turn off that emotion of mine sometimes. And maybe I think it might be because of that, not having a father figure in my life. And maybe being too, taking on that role of not trying to cry in front of my mother and my sister. Even in, I think, my mother's funeral, I was surprised that I didn't cry there. I would cry later on in life, later on when I was alone. But I had to be strong for my sister at the time. And now that all the family members, all my family has passed on, I have to basically walk this road alone. I can't confide and hug my mother anymore. I can't have those long conversations about what's going on with my career, my life, which I miss. With my sister, I can't talk about relationships or whatever we used to talk about. So yeah, I have to just navigate life now alone, which is in itself just a heavy burden to bear.
Thank you, Mr. Gqeberha, for your honesty and sharing this pain with the court. Mr. Gqeberha, we know from the amnesty applications, the transcripts, the circumstances of your father's death. We know from the post-mortem report that his cause of death was attributable to multiple stab wounds. Although the amnesty applications are not 100% clear as to who was present when your father was murdered, it does seem as if Mr. Van Zyl, Mr. Lotz, Mr. Faku and Mr. Magaduku were present. Now they allege in their applications for amnesty and also in their evidence that they rendered your father and the others unconscious before murdering them. And yet, Mr. Gqeberha, when we look at the autopsy reports and the post-mortem reports, given that the allegation is that they were struck heavy blows on the head with steel hammers and the like, and yet the autopsy reports don't reflect any blunt force injury to your father's head, or indeed that of the others. So it does seem that that aspect may very well have been fabricated. What's your response to that?
To me, it sounds definitely fabricated. When you see the brutalization and the desecration of their bodies, now if one had knocked them out with a blunt force object and they had fainted or gone unconscious, why use that such brutality? Why stab them countless times? One would think that if they're already unconscious, maybe could stab them once. Why so many times, to me? I think they say that so that it sounds like to others and the public that they died in peace. They didn't feel those countless stab wounds, that they would have been in the state of unconsciousness, that they couldn't have felt that pain. That's what it sounds like to me, that they're making it sound like there were no screams, there was no fighting, there was no brutality.
And on that score, we will be hearing a bit later from Dominique Kia, who presided over this reconciliation meeting with Eric Taylor. In the minutes attached to Dominique Kia's affidavit, the minutes of that meeting in which Mr. Taylor is alleged to have said that they died with dignity. What's your response to that?
That's exactly the same thing I was saying now. How do you die with dignity when you desecrated their bodies, stabbed them multiple times, took someone's hand off his arm, burnt their bodies so that their wives couldn't go to the mortuary and pick them out? That's not dignity. That's certainly not dignity. That's not dignified at all.
Just for your information, the allegation they make is that there had to be multiple stab wounds to give the impression that this was a UDF, a ZAPO, so-called black-on-black violence that was part of their cover story. And as mentioned, and we will be submitting to this Honourable Court, that the absence of fractures and other injuries on their head undermines the claim that they were first rendered unconscious. Now, Mr. Gqeberha, these individuals who applied for amnesty, there were 6 of them. And perhaps I'll just give you a sense of how long, well, at least the 6 who were refused amnesty, there were an additional 2 who were granted amnesty, but dealing with the 6 because the 6 were the either killers on the ground or masterminds behind the Cradock Four murders. And as you're aware, and you've pointed out in your evidence earlier this morning, they're all deceased now. Harold Snyman, who was the head of security branch in Port Elizabeth at the time, he died on the 1st of November 1998. Nicholas van Rensburg, who was second in command of the security branch in PE at the time, he died on 27 March 2004. Saki van Sail, who was the commander of the hit squad on the ground, he died on the 20th of August 2011. Gerard Lotz who took part in the murders. He died by suicide on the 20th of March 2016. Eric Taylor died on the 2nd of November 2016. And Barend Hermanus du Plessis, who was the head of Black Affairs for the security branch, died on the 16th of May 2023. So with the exception of Lotz, all these individuals were allowed to go to their graves peacefully without facing the repercussions, notwithstanding that they had been denied amnesty and notwithstanding that there were many years, particularly in the case of Barend du Plessis, Eric Taylor, and Gerard Lotz. In fact, in their cases, either exceeding 20 years or close to 20 years, where they could have been pursued. How has that impacted on you?
Those perpetrators, I would think, lived on to their later years, all above 50, all above 60, if that's correct. Am I correct in that? It certainly says to me that they lived their lives. They spent time with their kids, showed affection to their kids, took their kids to school and whatnot. So they were allowed by the post-apartheid government to live their lives like as they should till their supposed deaths. While we were waiting on truth and justice all these years. So their deaths denied us of those truths that we seek. They denied us of the peace that we were seeking. There were no consequences to them for what they did. And in that, we can't be at peace until the other people who are involved tell us the truth, and we can move on.
Mr. Gqeberha, do you have any hopes for this particular inquest?
I would like to think and hope that this inquest, that me and the other families have come to, is basically the blueprint going forward. I would hope that other families and others who were done harm and had injustices be given the proper chance to say how they feel, to get proper investigations on their cases. And as I said, as a blueprint, hopefully this carries on from here on out. Yes, that's all.
Mr. Gqeberha, before we close your evidence in chief, is there anything you wish to add or bring to the attention of this Honourable Court?
Further delays by the Defence Ministry, I'm pleading with them to get the funding they need to get their stuff sorted so that we don't derail this process any longer. This is our third chance. We've had two before. Hopefully this is the final one. And I plead with the SANDF, Minister of Defence, that they come to the party and do what they have to do to get this process going, and finally we can finally come to a conclusion.
On that score, Mr. Gqeberha, just to be clear, you want the Minister of Defence and the South African National Defence Force to cooperate with this inquest by providing the necessary legal support to former Lieutenant General Joffel van der Westhuizen, and I'm sure you're aware that I believe he's around 86 years old, and his lawyer has informed us that he's not well. Do you and the families have a concern that if he doesn't testify soon, you may be denied hearing from him?
Yes, we do, and again, we would repeat the same process that has been going on for all these 40 years, where things have been delayed, and then people have passed on, and then we don't get the truth. So don't let that happen again. Don't let us go through that again.
Thank you, Mr. Gqeberha. No further questions, my lady.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Gqeberha?
No questions, my lady. No questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gqeberha. Thank you for your time. You may step down. Yes, Mr. Van.
As the court pleases. My lady, our next witness is Dominique Kia. And my lady, we didn't anticipate making such good time because we told the Dominique to be here at 11, so he's only arriving at 11. Milady, maybe we could take an earlier tea adjournment today if the court is willing to give us that indulgence.
Let me know when you are ready.
As
Put
the
you
court
legend for tea.
All right.
Last year, then he filed.
Yes, Mr. Vani.
As the court pleases, Lady, our next and last witness for this hearing is Dominique Kia, and with the leave of the court, we'd like to call him to the stand.
Thank you. Please, if you can take your place in the witness stand. Can you also state your full names for the record, please?
Kia.
Okay, I'm sure I need not ask whether you regard the oath as binding in your conscience or whether you have an objection to taking
No
the
objection.
oath. That's quite obvious. All right. Swear that the evidence you report.
The lady thinks you should ask him.
Just to make sure. Please swear that the evidence you're about to give will be nothing else but the truth, and if you do, raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
Help me God.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Vani.
As the court pleases, Dominique Kia, thanks so much for taking the time to be with us this morning. Before we proceed, I just want to get you to confirm a statement that you made, which is dated the 29th of May 2025. I understand you have a copy of that statement before you. Milady, it's in the record under Exhibit F10.
Thank you.
Dominique, do you confirm that is your statement?
Yes.
Before we, well, let's kick off, Dominique, by you telling the court a bit about yourself and how it is you became a minister in the church.
Yeah, thank you. Grew up in Cape Town, Durbanville. So I had a good father. He was an attorney, Lukhanyo Calata. Calata became Minister of Defence of South Africa, Administrator of Cape Town. That was the partner. My father was with him. So we in the church, and so in 1958 my father went with the university's combi, little 1300 combi, to Fort Hare to meet the SRC there. And he was from the AB, the youth.
And can you just indicate to the court who he met with?
There was the SRC. I've got this paper, towel you eat with, through your mouth. All the SRC signed that thing. But one of the people that met there was Mandela.
Nelson Mandela. And you mentioned that the aim of the meeting between your father and Mandela and the others was to achieve some kind of...
Something for South Africa as youth leaders for the future. Yes.
Well, it is indeed a pity that your father's efforts, certainly at that time,
yes,
didn't quite work out.
Yes, very sorry.
So let's return to yourself, Dominique. So you mentioned that, at least in our consultation, that you went to Stellenbosch University, and you said you opted for the church over law.
Yes, the Bible says directly it's very difficult for a rich man to go to heaven. You can't. It's more difficult for a rich man to go into heaven than a camel through a needle's eye. That's Jesus. So I said, I don't can take that chance. And the other thing is, Mr. Mahatma Gandhi said, the eye for an eye makes the whole world go blind. So you must make heavy decisions when you're younger. So I made that in matric and I stick to the thing. I never.
So what decision did you take, Mr. Kutsia?
I said I will come to the church, I will be a Dominique, and I studied for 7 years. We had to study 7 years.
Theology.
Yes.
Dominique Kia, in a room full of lawyers, I dare say you probably made the right decision.
Well, you know, in matric I had the vision. In life you climb the ladder, and it must be very terrible when you get on the highest of your ladder and your ladder is on the wrong wall. Can't take that chance, huh? Many people. No, I'm not going to take that chance. I didn't.
Dominique, after your studies and after qualifying, how was it that you ended up at a church in Port Elizabeth?
I had 3 options. One, Queenstown, old Queenstown, and one permanent force defence for Oudtshoorn, and one here. So I said no army and no this, no that. So I accepted to be here. I'm still here.
And do you recall what year you came to Port Elizabeth?
Middle 89.
And which church did you first start at?
This is the western side of Port Elizabeth, not far from here, Gqeberha area. That was Nooit Gedacht. It was an old farm, Nooit Gedacht. So the congregation is Nooit Gedacht. Never thought about that. Nooit Gedacht.
And how long did you serve at Nooit Gedacht?
I was there 19 years, and 2008 I moved this side of the city to Walmer.
What
Still
does
there.
Nooit Gedacht mean? You seem
I
to-
never thought about that.
Oh,
You
I
know, a
thought-
farmer, he got a farm. He says, I never thought I would get a farm. Nooit Gedacht. So now there comes the church, Nooit Gedacht.
Okay.
But in Cape Town, there's a wine farm, Altyd Gedacht.
So you're currently at the Walmer Inquest.
Yes.
Now, if we can take you back to the 1990s,
Yes.
I presume you would have followed the news closely,
Yes.
and you would have observed the proceedings of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
Yes.
So the reason we have called you to testify today, Dominique Kia, is because we're aware that you hosted a very significant meeting on the 21st of April 1997
Yeah.
at your church, at which one of the perpetrators, Mr. Eric Taylor, who is now deceased, and several family members attended.
Yes.
Before we get into that meeting, can you describe in some detail how is it that meeting came about, and what was your role in it?
Well, that's a very important meeting. Archbishop Tutu said that was a miracle. So I was preaching every Sunday, you know, love, reconciliation. Jesus said, Father, forgive us as we forgive them, and all the things. And Eric was there. On the top there was a pavilion, what do you call that, gallery. Always sitting there. And then the church of the Eastern Province Synod, my church, said, this thing is coming, let's give funds, money, to assist people that's going through this.
When you say going through this,
The TRC.
The TRC.
I guess to assist perpetrators psychologically. But I don't know if the money was ever paid out, I doubt it. But there was a project from the church for this thing to assist. So I mentioned it in the church, there's something there coming. And Eric contacted me and said, he will be part of, he want to meet the family of the Cradock Four. He would like to meet the family. So that's what happened.
So Did he explain to you why it is that he wanted to meet the families of the Cradock Four?
Yes, he said he was involved in the Cradock Four killings, and he would like to meet the family to have some forgiveness, if they can forgive him and things. And that was very unique because the whole security system was watching this case study. It is a case study. So if it went well, I think more people would have done that and come forward with information, but they didn't.
Well, let's just talk about the build-up to that meeting. Did you solicit the help of anybody in trying to set up that meeting?
We had a meeting in the church here by Prof. Piet Meyer, and he's a journalist, professor, and in the church and so on, and he was a commissioner of the TRC. He said there will be TRC and things, and so I think I phoned him to say there's a member that wants to see victims, and I guess he phoned June Crichton or someone, but they arranged, the community of Cradock, the families, they arranged the meeting. From my side, I contacted the church council, and you know, in the church is no politics, you know that. Anyway, no politics. So they said we can have the church committee room is about this size, and we can have the place for this meeting. And I didn't arrange the meeting. I was there, they were there, and we had the meeting.
You mentioned that June Crichton played a role. Who was she?
I think she's TRC, perhaps a commissioner, I'm not sure, but she was Black Sash in the old days, and so she was good contacts, and I think she arranged the meeting. But I didn't ask her, but it was not me. But it must have been her.
Actually, she wasn't a commissioner, but she was a member of the Human Rights Violations Committee of the TRC. So, between Prof. Mayering and June Crichton,
Yeah.
they assisted you in setting up this meeting, and as you say in your statement, it took place at your church on the 21st of April, 1997. Before we talk about
87?
97.
97.
Before we talk about the meeting itself, can you tell the court who exactly was present at the meeting?
It was not Bishop Dominique, Reverend Kundu, and Eric Taylor, and I think June Crichton, me, and the rest have been family or people from Cradock.
So there is a list of those family members on page 2 of your statement. Perhaps you can just read out the individuals present.
Sorry for my pronunciation. I know my English are good, but Eric Taylor, the late Rev Mkebisi Kundu, June Crichton, Alex Koniwe, I remember him very well. He's also dead now. Ali Koniwe, Gilbert Gqeberha, Makanya Mkonto, Person Mslowly, very well Ms. Calata, Indilwe Mslowly, and Nkosi Mkonto. Yes.
And the other names at the top of page 3.
Tsetse Kowa and Kubani Zonke.
Thank you. Milady, the Reverend Mkebisi Mkonto, he's deceased now. He died in 2015. He was the Archdeacon of the Diocese of Port Elizabeth and a former member of the Reparations and Reconciliation Committee of the Truth Commission. I understand, Mr. Taylor, that in fact it was the late Reverend Kundu who actually ran the meeting. Perhaps you can now tell her ladyship about the meeting, and Milady, there are in fact minutes attached. Well, in fact, they're not described as minutes, they're described as notes prepared by June Crichton, which is attached to the affidavit of Dominique Kia, and he will rely on June Crichton's notes to assist him. You don't have to read, we don't really have time to go through all the actual notes, but can you give your reflections on how that meeting proceeded?
I just want to say, if this minutes was not out, we were not here today. There was an inquiry, nothing happened. So the Truth and Reconciliation, I gave this to Advocate Bezos, because they were speculating things. I said, that's what I've got. And I gave it listed later to Mr. Calata, the son. So I think Eric Taylor, if you read the minutes, basically said why he's there. Basically, not that he must get forgiveness, but he have got this conscience thing in his mind to tell the family, and maybe they will forgive him. Maybe they will forgive him. And he said where he come from and went through, and he gave the family chance to answer, to say questions and get answers they would never ever in their life get, because these people, these security people, working a very tight need-to-know basis. So if they don't speak, no one knows anything. So he gave the family chance for questions, and he answered them. I think every little question he answered, and that was 4 hours. I think for 5 hours. It was a long time. The family can assist me there, how many hours. And then Mr. Gqeberha came forward, for instance, Alec, and he said with the hand to Mr. Taylor, I forgive you. I'm satisfied, but not yet fully. But things like that happened. I think he was more the spokesperson on the day for the family. And I honor the families. For them to come here, they had to sneak away at Cradock because the community wouldn't like them to meet these people here, police people. And I honor also the church to give us the chance to have this meeting for both sides there. So there was, then the last remarks was Reverend Kundu, and he said something that's not in the minutes. He said specifically, we are all victims. I didn't know what he meant. I didn't ask him. But you know, that's what he said, and then there was the last things, and travel well, and we went out, basically.
Dominique, let's just go back a little. On the question of the families having to sneak in from Cradock, we will have to consult on that, but I think there were in fact some consultations that were carried out in Cradock.
Yes, they were.
I don't think that they did this secretly per se,
Yes.
but it is something that we can check with them. At the beginning of the meeting, the notes reflect that Eric Taylor said he will try to be as honest as he can. He will try to answer all questions.
Yes.
But there was a disclaimer. He said that he wasn't able to talk about certain things. Do you recall?
I can't remember that, but I'm sure it's true.
Essentially, according to the notes, he said that he wasn't able to talk about the roles of the others,
Yes.
his colleagues, the particular roles that they had played in the murders.
I'm sure it's true.
Yes.
You know, the other people didn't agree with him. His lawyers didn't agree with him. So there was that pressure on him not to do it. But he said, I must do it, but I'll do it then for me. I won't speak other people.
So as you pointed out, family members had a number of questions.
Yes.
Was he open about the fact that the previous year, in December, he had applied for amnesty?
I can't remember that, but the thing about open, I had the feeling against all people that doesn't agree with him, he was willing to be open. So anything you wanted to know, he will tell you.
Yes.
Even that.
Well, he did in fact disclose to the families that he had applied for amnesty.
Yes.
He wasn't sure whether he was going to get amnesty.
Yes.
But he indicated that that was a technical process, and he was here to speak to the families, but also to seek their forgiveness.
Yes.
You recall that?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, we have raised this meeting with some of the witnesses. So, for example, yesterday we heard from Mr. Ngombani Zonke, the brother-in-law of the late Mr. Mshlali, and he held the view that Mr. Taylor arranged this meeting because he had applied for amnesty, and he felt that he was seeking reconciliation and forgiveness because, at least in Mr. Zonke's view, it may help him with his amnesty application.
Well, that's what Eric told me. Secondly, if that was a good strategy, other people would follow that also. He didn't. So I think he was a man saying, listen, I was in the church, I listened to what I must do, reconciliation, I'll do that, and I might get something, but I can't demand it. I don't agree with that. If that was a good strategy, others would have done it as well.
And in fact, we do know that he did raise that in his hearing, which was held some 2 years later, on the 2nd of March 1998.
Yes.
And you're aware that ultimately Mr. Taylor was denied amnesty.
Didn't get an amnesty, but he was. That was not his purpose with us, our meeting.
Do you recall that questions were asked of him as to who he personally had murdered? Do you recall that question?
I can't recall the question, but I think he said it was very dark and he didn't know who was with whom. So there were specific questions, how was the atmosphere, how was that? And he answered, it was calm, he was impressed by those people. Calmness and, personality. It was not a fighting, it was not a screaming. So he sketched the atmosphere of the scene. But he
by those people, he meant the persons who were ultimately killed.
Yes.
Okay.
But he told me afterwards that he went to the scene plan, the police plan, who's where. And so we went and he could find out later that he was with Mr. Calata. Later he had to go to the plan. He didn't know it at that night who he was with. So he told me that, and I thought it was quite important, so I told that to Mr. Calata, the son, Lukhanyo. These type of things that wouldn't get out if he didn't say it, he could just say, and there's no motive to say it. No, you can't get anything from that.
Now, just on the claim that he made that they died peacefully and there wasn't screaming and shouting. That's also a claim that was made by Mr. Taylor and indeed the others, that they had rendered the four unconscious first, and then thereafter the stabbing and killing took place. But the claim of Mr. Taylor doesn't seem to be that consistent with the evidence that is available. It was led before the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So to give you one example, Mr. Saki van Zyl, who actually led that particular hit squad, he took away Mr. Nkonta, and there was a vicious struggle between them, according to Mr. Saki van Zyl, before Mr. Nkonta was eventually subdued when Mr. van Zyl shot him. So would you agree that at least in that instance it was not a peaceful process?
I don't know how there can be a vicious shuttle if they, the hands closed. How can you, I don't know that. But I was not there and he was not there. Eric was with Mr. Calata, and what happened there, he told me and all of us, and that's what we have.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
Well, just so you know, according to the evidence of Saki van Zyl before the amnesty process,
yes,
he took Mr. Nkonta
it could be there,
away from,
but Eric was not there.
In a vehicle.
Sorry.
And although Mr. Nkonta was handcuffed, he managed to put his handcuff, he was in the back seat, and van Zyl was not in the driver's seat. He managed to put his handcuffed hands over the neck, and that scuffle ensued.
I accept that.
But let's now turn to Mr. Calata and the others. And I see from June Crichton's notes, my lady, it's at the top of page 8 of the notes attached to the Dominie's affidavit. And I'll just quote the paragraph which supports what you said earlier. Eric Taylor understood that there were still a lot of questions regarding the death of the four, but there was one thing he wanted to emphasize, and that was that all four died with dignity. Can it be so in your view that they died with dignity?
Absolutely. He was, in our personal conversation, he was impressed by those people. Impressed.
Although dying peacefully and dying with dignity suggests that they were put to death in a humane fashion.
No, never humane. But I think the way the self-control the people had on themselves was not like screaming, shouting, fighting. It was behaved, it was silent, it was, it's more that what I mean.
Right. The demeanor.
The demeanor was he was impressed with that. Didn't expect that.
No, you see, on that aspect, we have some difficulty with Mr. Taylor's version, because all of the applicants for amnesty who were on the scene, made this allegation that the four were rendered unconscious, and they speak of striking the heads of the four before they were either shot or stabbed. And yet when we study the post-mortem and autopsy reports, one would have expected to have seen a description perhaps of a skull fracture or other injury, because apparently, and according to the amnesty applications, the device used was a steel mallet or hammer or spring. And yet there are no descriptions of such injuries, which suggests that 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 wasn't the case, that they were simply shot and or stabbed. And I'm sure you'd agree, if somebody is stabbed multiple times, then it's not going to be a peaceful death with dignity.
I was not there. I only know Eric was there. There was no other fighting than stab, and I would guess it was over very fast. But up till that point, it was he was impressed with the people. They're not out of control. Even though if it asked some people, we could think, we would have shouted and prayed and anything, and but that didn't happen.
Right. But
and he told me no. He didn't. Why wouldn't he tell me batten or sharp or string? Or he didn't. There's no facts for that.
Well, that's actually in his amnesty application.
In his.
Milady, I refer the Honourable Court to the amnesty application of Mr. Eric Taylor. It's in the current record at A6.5, and we'll find the passage where that allegation is made.
Yes, it's only what I've got before me.
Yes, no, obviously we're not asking you to
yes.
Testify on their behalf. You were not there.
Sorry, just for information, that batten or spring or thing, it was his testimony, or on the other people there.
So Mr. Lotz, Mr. Van Zyl, as well as Mr. Taylor, they allege that before the four were killed, they were rendered unconscious through blows to the head. Now, I believe it's Mr. Taylor and Mr. Lotz speak of either a steel hammer or spring, whereas Mr. Van Zyl refers to a rubber mallet, and they struck the heads of the victims before shooting.
I don't know what the purpose of that would be. They wanted to kill the people. They've got knives. I don't know.
I'm sure you won't be able to explain that to a meaning.
Milady, for the record, unfortunately the application is not numbered, but it is in paragraph 9, several paragraphs down. I'll just read the relevant sentence. I walked back to the vehicle and fetched the remaining activist, whereafter I also hit him with this iron object against the neck from behind, whereafter he also fell down unconscious. Dominique, the only point I'm making is that certainly from the perspective of the families,
yes.
Well, yes, the four may have carried themselves with dignity and that kind of demeanour.
Yes.
The method of their deaths
yes.
was hardly peaceful and was without dignity.
Agree.
Thank you. So, at the end of the meeting, you made reference to, I think it's Mr. Alex Gqeberha, who said that he is appreciative of what Mr. Taylor has done today. He's relieved, but not yet fully.
Yes.
Do you recall the response of the other family members?
It was in the same line. All were relieved, thanked to be here. It's the first meeting. Next time Mr. Gqeberha will be here also, one of the sons, I think. Mrs. Calata was sad, very sad, which you must understand. But I think all was grateful for the meeting they had. It helped them a lot. Up till then, they had zero.
Right. And indeed, it was the first time that they got to hear in some detail
yes.
what had happened to
yes.
their loved ones. And you mentioned at the beginning of your evidence that you were hoping that this process would become a kind of blueprint for further encounters.
Yes. If Archbishop said it was a miracle, people said it is God's work, Reverend Kundu. So if the Truth and Reconciliation process, in my view, was not so much judged but also going towards reconciliation, it would have gone further than it was now, a fight between law parties, you know, this one and that. So it didn't work so well, but the church part, when the church played a role, it went very well.
And I understand that after that meeting, or perhaps the next day, you were called by Archbishop Tutu.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that exchange?
Yeah, that was incredible. You know, I come from a Kalahari, my English are good, you know. So he phones me, Archbishop Tutu, I was in the old house, visiting old lady. Yes, speaking Archbishop Tutu to me in Afrikaans. I put the phone to this lady's ear as a witness. It's him. He says, thank you, thank you, thank you, and it will open the doors and things. And then he said, can I pray for you? I said, yes, please. Archbishop prayed for me in Afrikaans. Then I got my bearings back. I said, can I pray for you, sir? He says, yes. So now my English. But he's in Afrikaans, I'm in English, how can it happen? I pray, Father in heaven, be with this father. So it took a lot of attention. There was a film made, A Long Night's Damage, that's not 100% the title, by Iris Films in San Francisco, West Coast, America. This book was written, it was one of case studies. So it drew a lot of attention for the new possibilities in South Africa. And this was the thing that opened the door for more trust and more openness. You know, Mr. Vlok washed the feet and those things.
The book that the Dominique is referring to is titled Chronicle of the Truth Commission, A Journey Through the Past and Present into the Future of South Africa. And it's by Pete Mehring, Professor Pete Mehring, who helped to facilitate the encounter with Eric Taylor. And the film that the Dominique is referring to is titled A Long Night's Journey into Day. Dominique, do you have some regret that it turned out that this was one of the only occasions where a perpetrator had come forward and reached out to the families to tell them what happened?
Yes, absolutely. This must have been the first, and then it must open the floodgates and people must come and many people didn't apply, telling the truth. Many people didn't, when they see it was a bit, you know, vijandig, what's the word? The atmosphere was not, they said, why must I do it? But Eric said, I will do it.
So were you disappointed that others did not follow suit?
Yes. You know, it's truth and reconciliation. And Bishop Tutu, you know, it's in the press today. Who stopped the process? Why was there no, you know, investigation? Why didn't they? But I think Archbishop Tutu, he was involved, and he always said, "We are all God's children. It's all God's children." And it's only after his death that things, inquiries begin to happen again.
And certainly from the perspective of the families, I suppose, to add insult to their injury, notwithstanding that Taylor and the others, particularly those up the chain of command,
Yes.
we either refused amnesty or did not apply for amnesty.
Yes.
There were no consequences. They were all allowed to go to their graves peacefully.
Yes. That's the disappointment.
What do you think the impact of that has been on the wider community and society?
Well, the reconciliation didn't go as it should. I think it's like in Palestine, you know, it's escalating. And even South Africa, it didn't diffuse and let's find each other. the process didn't go where it should have been. The aim was reconciliation, New South Africa, brothers and sisters. Didn't happen.
Thank you, Dominique. Dominique, before we close up, is there anything you would like to add or bring to the attention of the Honourable Court?
Just think of it. So afterwards I found out who was with whom. I told you that. Oh yes, one thing more. I asked him who else was involved. And he told me, he told me the words he used, someone opened the gate. So I don't know if it was you come from the road onto the farm where the things happened. If someone opened and closed the gate, or that was that symbol speaking to say there was hierarchy giving commands. But he said someone opened the gate. So there were people that helped, but he thought it was so little influence, you know, open the gate and close, leave that alone. So that's what I understood. It's not worthwhile to go there. No, he told me that, and I believe him. There must be some other people. His word was, they opened the gate.
But he didn't indicate who was opening the gate.
So he said they opened the gate, so I didn't push him there.
Okay. And you're not sure whether it was a physical gate or a metaphorical gate?
I would think it's more in the operation. Perhaps a spy, perhaps someone opened the gate. Someone there along the lines that helped a bit, you know, in the operation. But they worked on a need-to-know basis. It was amazing that people, that's a sergeant and a lieutenant, low ranks, that they can have basically full power in an operation. But they worked in a small thing and they didn't need people left and right. Perhaps open the gate. So I didn't think it was P.W. Botha coming down all the way to Sergeant so-and-so. I don't believe that. I think they worked, operate on a need-to-know basis.
People treat him on very thin ice now. I doubt if the Dominique would have any knowledge about the things he's testifying.
Agreed.
Okay, I can leave it, but he said open the gate. So you said what else? I said, he told me that someone opened the gate and he was with Mr. Taylor. I tried to think everything now, but I think that's all.
Exactly.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Dominique. If there's nothing else,
Yes.
then we can conclude your testimony. And I'd just like to thank you again for your role in facilitating that important encounter between Mr. Taylor and the family members. I know it did mean a lot to them.
Yes.
And thanks again for your time this morning.
Thank you.
You have to wait before, it's only the judge that can excuse you. Milady, those are our questions.
Okay. Should I excuse Dominique Kia? Are there any questions?
We have no questions.
Mr. Sakela?
I have a few questions. Mr. Dominique, can you assist us just to clarify? Did Mr. Taylor tell you how many they were when they conducted the operation on the road?
No, he didn't speak about other people. No.
He talked about himself.
Those people, the other people, didn't agree with what he's doing. So he refrained from involving them, which I respect. It was his conscience, his project to meet the family. So no, he didn't refer to other people and how it worked. But when I pushed him, he said, someone opened the door, the gate.
Okay. Then, as a minister of a church, you believed that when Mr. Taylor approached you, he was sent by God forgiveness. Didn't you think that?
Sorry, I
that
did not get that, Mr. Sakela.
When Mr. Taylor approached you in church on that day, and it was after you have preached, and what occurred in what is it that occurred in your mind? Let me ask that way first.
Well, he believes he is totally forgiven by God. It's in minutes. We believe the heavenly prayer. Jesus said, Father, forgive us, like we forgive those who trespassed against us. So there's a definitely thing, forgiveness is not just me and God. It's also some relation to me and my brother. So that's why he took this horizontal thing. So I must speak to my brothers' families for me to get right with God. And that's the right thing to do, to come out with the truth and to say, if you can forgive me, I don't expect me, but I tell you, this is what I did. If you can forgive me, I will be happy.
Yeah. We need to understand the setup, because I'm a little bit confused as to how this thing took place.
Yes.
It was after the church,
Yes.
after you have preached, then Mr. Taylor approached you.
Yes.
And did you have a meeting with him aside,
Yes.
the exclusion of other
Yes,
people?
yes.
Did you ask him questions relating to the forgiveness that he thought he was forgiven by God?
I don't think I would have asked. He came to me and confronted. He said what his story was. He killed someone. He wanted to see the family. He feel bad. He saw the film Mississippi Burning. That influenced him a lot. Can I meet? So I said yes. So I didn't have this discussion about the theology of the thing.
Did it not occur in your mind to ask him direct questions about how this occurred? Who instructed you to do this?
No, you asked for a meeting, and I knew there will be the time to do the questions and the answers. And I basically said, okay, fine. I'll ask someone to arrange the meeting, and then we can proceed. So at that stage, I didn't ask questions, but sometimes, we see one another sometimes somewhere, and then I ask him who was involved. Those questions, just short ones. How did it happen? Who was you? With whom? And he gave me the answers honestly. But I didn't inquire him, how can you do that? How do you think this? Who was involved? I didn't have my own inquiry.
Yeah, because it's confusing a little bit in my mind as to this person approaches you,
Yes.
telling you that I've killed someone, the circumstances under which he killed this person. Did he disclose them?
So again, what?
Did he disclose the circumstances under which he killed him?
No, not. And then you must know, there's another thing that I must know. If someone confessed to me anything, the court can call me. The court can call me, then I must talk. So let's wait for the meeting, then you can discuss that. But I'm not going in a private conversation like a truth and conciliation movement here. This guy wants to see family, I arrange that. He wants to come clean with God, I tell him God forgives you. I'm a pastor, I'm not a detective. I didn't go there. And I thought the time will come for them, for that questions to come out at the hearing. The truth and there. I'm not going to do it now.
Let me get it clear. You facilitated the meeting.
Yes.
Without you knowing the full details of what this person was.
Absolutely. I knew he killed someone. He felt bad. Can I arrange it? He's a member of the church. How can he do it? And that's the story.
Okay. We know it from although I'm not going to take you to the statement of Mr. de Kock.
Yes.
He indicated in the statement that was read here at some stage that there was a struggle between Matthew Gqeberha and someone who was to kill Mr. Gqeberha, and there was a struggle between them and a shooting where the bullet went through the car.
The evidence doesn't reflect a struggle between Matthew Gqeberha and others. If there was, then my learned friend would have to draw the court's attention to that. We raised a scuffle between Mr. Mkonto and Mr. Van Sale.
Yes, Mr. Soke.
Yes, thank you. I think there was more than one car. Eric was with these people. What happened there? No evidence.
Okay, just wait for the question.
I would, my lady, I don't know whether I would have to go and take the file because there are so many files. I brought only one with the statements. I did not bring that one. But I don't want to delay this court about that at the moment. But that will come. Mr. Toby did read an evidence that showed something before this honorable court, but that file is in the car now. I apologize, but I will skip that question for now. But you understand from the questions of my learned friend that it could not have been a peaceful death that took place on that night.
No, I don't agree with that. If someone is under self-control in a very dangerous situation, very, very dangerous, and it impressed this policeman, and then you give one strike with a knife, he's dead. There was no hysteric or things that I can believe that it was very dangerous. They were under self-control and they never dead. I was not dead there, but I can think it mustn't. You can't say there must be a struggle, there must be a fight, there must be a knock. That's
yes, but you were not there.
I was not there.
You were not there.
But what I've got the evidence of my brother, and I've no lie. Why would they tell me everything? First and only one ever in South Africa, and then lie about the method. It's a kiri or a spring or a knife.
We won't know.
I want to know that. Yes.
So on this issue, which my learned friend put to your attention, that these people were stabbed several times.
Yes.
Multiple times. He used the word multiple times.
Yes.
When you look at that, do you believe it was a peaceful death?
Has the witness not... yes,
apologies, my lady. Might just ask where this is going. It seems like he's asking this witness for his opinion about how they died, my lady. I think it's quite clear that this witness wasn't there. I don't think he can make it clearer, and I think it's unfair for this witness to express his opinion about that.
Yes.
Mate, please.
Besides Mr. Sakela, I think he was taken that route earlier by Mr. Vani, and he gave an
Yes.
explanation or an answer to that question.
Thank you, my
I
lady.
don't think it will serve any purpose to go through that once again.
Okay, thank you, my lady. At some stage when the minutes start, they refer to two cars having stopped them on the road and pushed them outside the road and took them. But later in the minutes, you see that there were three cars that took them different ways. Do you know why there is such an inconsistent...
I'm sorry to interrupt, Milady. As the court has pointed out, this witness was not present at that scene. The discrepancies in the notes that Ms. June Crichton put up, I think it's unfair to put those kinds of questions to this witness.
Mr. Sakela?
My lady, I'm asking about what occurred in the meeting. This witness was in the meeting. In the minutes, they say there were two cars that pushed the car of Mr. Goniwa.
How would he know that there were two cars or three cars? Or
That's why I want to know whether he got the impression that there were three, not two, or there were two cars. That's what I want to know, because in the statements, in the minutes, it's not clear.
But how will he know, Mr. Sakela, that is the problem? How can he account for those differences, contradictions, or inaccuracies, or confusion? How can he account for that if he was not there?
In the meeting, he was.
It's quite clear. The Germany was just a facilitator, not an investigator or a cross-examiner.
Yes, I think
he sat there and he related what they told him.
I think he said that as much. Yes, Mr. Sakela.
Okay. My last question to you, did you get any understanding as to was there at any stage in that meeting where Mr. Taylor was asked a question relating to who instructed them? Whether was there any person who instructed them to do the operation, and also the actual killing?
The family could ask anything they wanted, and obviously they would have asked that. And he told specifically we work in a need-to-know basis. And I believe him. Very small group.
Are you saying that question was put to
Yes.
him and he answered the
I think
question?
if I can read through the minutes, I will get it. But they worked in a he used the word, I didn't know that word, I picked the word.
Need to know basis.
Need to know basis. So there was political pressure from PV Botha, okay? But these people worked on a need to know basis. There was no line there. That's what he said.
But in the minutes, there is an indication that they listened to, they knew that they were going to go to PE for a meeting.
Yeah, it's
Okay, just refer to the specific part of the minutes.
My lady, I'm reading from the statement in my computer. Let me just look for that part. I did not mark it. I apologize, my lady.
Page 5, he strongly denied that any informers had been involved, that type of thing.
There is a stage where he talks about they were aware that they were going to go to PE
Yes.
to meet Mr. Swart.
Yes.
My lady, it's just that now it was
So what is the question?
the question is, it looks like they were listening to these people. They knew all their plans. Their plans that they will be in PE on such a date. That's the impression you got as well. And who they did not indicate as to who instructed them to do so.
What's the question?
Who instructed them to listen
don't know.
to the calls. They did not indicate that.
They didn't indicate that. They indicated that they work on a very small basis. And I can speculate, perhaps one could sit next
Yes,
to the
you'd rather not, that will not be of much assistance to the court.
too, my
Yeah,
lady.
Yes.
that was my last question, my lady.
Thank you. Any more questions for Mr. Gqeberha?
Maybe I can just clarify for the jury. Why a donkey Germany?
Is it donkey?
So he understands that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Skuma. Thank you very much, Dominique. The only gripe I have with you is that you did not pray for us. You prayed for Bishop Tutu, but you didn't pray for us. You are excused.
But can I say one thing more? Collection at the door.
Yes, please make sure you put something towards the collection. Mr. Vani?
As the court pleases. Lady, as mentioned, Dominique Kia was our last witness for the day, and indeed for this part of the reopened inquest. Lady, I suppose there are some housekeeping matters, such as the question of the record and the inspection report, and then the question of dates for the next hearing. I'll leave it to Advocate Gqeberha to report on the record, or perhaps I can just say it's not quite ready as yet, Milady, but between Advocates Gqeberha and Suleiman, they are working on it. And I've just received information hot off the press that it will be ready later today. Lady, on our part, we must apologize that we haven't as yet circulated the
Minutes of the inspection.
inspection. We do have a full draft, but because it's been a busy week for us, I still have to settle that, and we will email it to the ladyship and the parties, and then hand up a copy at the next hearing. And then, my lady, finally on the question of dates, there is a consensus for reconvening in October. But perhaps I should hand over to my colleagues for the state, and they can make that proposal.
Mr. Coachman?
regards to the dates for the next session, parties, with your guidance, my lady, is the 13th of October till the 24th of October. Mr. Salias did confirm with us as well too that he did speak to Mr. Van Zyl, and those dates are suitable to him as well.
But of course, the issue of the legal representation
It's still an issue, my lady. And that's the, as we've indicated earlier in our submissions on the opening day and our discussions in chambers, my lady, we still of the opinion that we want to subpoena the legal officer of the South African National Defence Force, more for him to explain the delays. We, as we indicated to the to your ladyship and the other parties, we were suggesting a separate date for that inquiry, and whichever party wishes to be present can be, but we will deal with that inquiry. My lady, considering that we require 14 days, we were suggesting, or believe maybe the 27th of June, with your guidance, my lady. That gives us more than 14 days. It's a Friday, and then we can issue the subpoena for them to be present to explain what is the delay and when, or if we actually will come to an agreement before that October date. If your ladyship is in agreement with that, my lady, I will prepare that subpoena and forward it to the relevant party.
Right. Although I'm not sure what how I stand on the 27th of June, but we can set it down for that date, for that purpose. Otherwise, we're agreed that for the rest of the inquest hearing, the matter should be postponed to the 13th through to the 24th of October. Is that arrangement agreeable to everyone? Thank you. Already we've come to the end of this session of the inquest, and it will continue now from the 13th of October through to the 24th of October. Same place. The issue about the subpoena of an official from the South African Defence Force, that is a matter that we'll attend to before, hopefully on the 27th of June this year. With that, thank you to everyone. We'll meet again in October for the rest of the inquest. All right.